Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. Yesterday, we got huge news that Hasbro has sent out an internal memo to all of their employees that there will be 1,100 layoffs. 1,100 people are losing their jobs at Hasbro. This comes off the bat. That is 20% of Hasbro's current employees and workforce. That is off the bat of a couple months ago, they just released 800 employees. So that means in 2023, Hasbro has fired or let go of 29% of its employees, which is absolutely wild. And this happening right in the holiday season with Chris Cox saying, "I'm sorry, I know that it's rough in this holiday season to hear this." They now have to sit and wait. Some people are being let go this week. Some people are getting let go over the course of 6 months. People aren't going to know if they're being fired or not at Hasbro. Absolutely terrible. I don't know if people watch this from there, but I'm sorry for those of you who work at Hasbro. My condolences go out to you. That is crazy. And it sucks. And this is the culmination of a terrible year that we have seen from perspective of the consumers from Hasbro and from Wizards of the Coast and from all this stuff going on and the way that they are managing the company, but also on the back end of a year of which they have been advertising and promoting and celebrating their first $1 billion year with Wizards of the Coast and Magic sales and whatever. So it is an absolutely mind-blowing thing to think that the same company is celebrating success, but then also letting go of 29% of their employees. And so I want to get into a couple of things. First off, it's important to remember, and I feel like some of the YouTubing stuff that's been going on right now, it's been so focused on Chris Cox and Wizards of the Coast. And it's important to know that Hasbro is way bigger, maybe not financially, but corporately, way bigger than Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is one entity that creates Magicthegathering and Dungeons and Dragons, and there is a bigger entity that is Hasbro. So we don't know if these 11,000 jobs have anything to do with Wizards of the Coast employees. It is global. The layoffs are global, and that's really an important statement to make. But what we do know is that in Q3 of last year, consumer products, which is where I read is like Magic the Gathering and other things for Hasbro. I'm sure there's some toys and stuff like that. Were $93 million in profit in Q3 of this year. In Q3, the loss leader for Hasbro was $468 million in just Q3 in their entertainment section of Hasbro. So we're all focused on the cash cow, and we've seen the Bank of America thing talk about the cash cow and Chris Cox milking Magic and the cash cow of the thing. We're seeing success from Wizards of the Coast side, but they are completely destroying that profit by having this entertainment side that is losing $468 million in Q3. And now here's the kicker. Those 29% of employees, that reduction of income will only have a savings of $300 million a year, according to the sites that I was looking at. So that means that they're still hemorrhaging money from this entertainment section at Hasbro, which is wild. And again, you have these employees wondering for the next 6 months if they're going to get fired or not, which is just it's just terrible. So I want to get into this and using those statistics and using that data to talk about what does this mean for Hasbro as a company, what does this mean for Wizards of the Coast and for Magic and kind of the whole thing. First off, I would be very surprised if a large percentage of those layoffs happen at the Wizards of the Coast side of the company. My guess says that a lot of that stuff will happen at different areas in the company, and that's just the way it is. Again, we have no evidence of that. We don't know who's getting laid off yet. We don't kind of have any of that information. But this goes back to this idea that this reality of business in 2023 is you have to have record profits every year. Otherwise, it was kind of like, well, it wasn't worth it. That CEO's not doing their job. And it puts these businesses and these companies in a place where they don't care about the actual user experience. They don't care about the end, and that's got to be so frustrating for a Wizards of the Coast employee who loves Magic the Gathering and is excited to work on sets, and then they just see the CEOs and they don't care about the specifics, they just care about the bottom dollar. But that is the reality that we live in when we're talking about Hasbro, a globally traded company. That is the reality, that profits are what matter. And so I know we want to be angry and frustrated and with Magic, but from a Wizards of the Coast perspective, they live in their bubble. And they're being forced to do things as a result of this kind of real world that we live in. And we're going to get to that at the end. When this gets into the limelight, what we're realizing is that, again, Hasbro is cash cowing Magic the Gathering, and we have to get to a place, and I don't think this will ever happen, where somebody buys Wizards of the Coast, or Wizards of the Coast can exit from the Hasbro umbrella. If we want to see Magic succeed, or if they want to see Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons really succeed, they need to be their own entities that they can grow business from themselves, rather than being completely all the profits going into these other sides of the business and the industry that are failing miserably. Listen, the entertainment industry is completely screwed, okay? Like, even, I was reading a report the other day, even like Netflix, hemorrhaging users, hemorrhaging money. It is the way that things were kind of 10, 15 years ago with making movies and making all this money. It's completely changed, and the new way just doesn't work. It's not working for the companies. It's not working for the consumer. There's all these reports of people canceling their subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. And when you are under the operations of a business that is involved with that, it is just too difficult for you to grow. So I do not anticipate that Wizards of the Coast has any ability to expand and grow they can't blossom because they're being squashed by this terrible company that is putting their resources and money into the stuff that just doesn't work right now. Like, the entertainment industry is just not working. So I think it's important to remember, what does this mean for you, right? As a consumer of these products, what does it mean for you and for me as a store owner who's going to carry Magic the Gathering? Like, I don't think Magic the Gathering is going anywhere. This seems terrible from the perspective of Hasbro, right? If you are an investor in Hasbro stock, I have a little bit of Hasbro stock, like, I don't know, like 5 shares or something like that. It's not like, it's a terrible investment right now. They are hemorrhaging money in an incredible way. It makes no sense, right? But from a Wizards perspective, Magic the Gathering's not going anywhere. It is largely successful right now. It is bringing in a record number of sales for the parent company of Hasbro, and Magic the Gathering as a whole is doing incredibly well. And I know nobody wants to hear that on YouTube. I did a video yesterday talking about Lost Caverns of Ixalan and how it's a great set. Nobody wants to watch that. You all just want to watch the world burn, and you want to talk about all the negativity. I get that. But the reality is that Magic's not like doing bad. It's growing. I think the populace is coming into play. We had a huge pre-release. Like, things are going well from a perspective of just Magic the Gathering ecosystem. The issue is that their ecosystem, the Magic the Gathering, the D&D ecosystem, is within this bubble that prevents them from growing and reaching forward and moving and investing their profits into themselves and growing their brand and becoming something that it could be, because all that profit and all that money is getting wasted on stuff that doesn't matter to Wizards of the Coast. And so it's just wild. I think as a consumer, this is probably like not the biggest deal. Like, this probably doesn't make a huge change in the way that you purchase product. I do think it's probably the result. This type of thing probably influences the production numbers and that kind of thing that we always talk about. If they're trying to milk Magic to get even more money, they're probably ramping up production. They're probably doing the more sets a year thing. They've got Secret Lair and all that stuff affects, but it's not going to change. That's kind of what we've seen happening. They are honing back on it a little bit. But from a bigger perspective, I think the issue is the Hasbro bubble on top of Wizards of the Coast. So from a store owning perspective, like, again, I don't think this changes much. Like, I don't think, like, looking at this, I didn't see Magic the Gathering in their biggest year ever, and I wasn't like, oh, that means I should start spending more money as a store owner. I think it's kind of like, it's kind of a non-issue. I think the biggest question is, when does somebody come down and buy Hasbro? And at that point, what does that company do to Magic the Gathering and to Wizards of the Coast? Because at the end of the day, that is how I see this ending. And I'm not like some corporate, like, I don't know that world very well, but I know the lower the Hasbro stock is, the lower the value of the company is, and the more incentive somebody has to buy Hasbro, take away all the entertainment stuff, throw that away somehow, and then take the profits and grow the business of Wizards of the Coast in a meaningful way. And so I think that is the reaction that happens eventually. I don't know if we're talking a year from now or 30 years from now or what, but the question for Magic the Gathering is, who picks that up? Like, who does Bezos and Amazon, does Apple or Disney or somebody like that pick up Hasbro as an entity so that they can utilize Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering? Does some other big successful entertainment industry pick up the whole company to get the licenses and all that stuff for Transformers and Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons? I don't know the answer to that. I know that nothing really matters of this from a consumer or store owning perspective until that news drops. Until that happens, I'm not sure any of this happens. Other than that, we can just say it's a really scumbag move to notify everybody on 12 days before Christmas. Hey, it's the 12th day of Christmas. Chris Cox gives to you one memo laying off 28% of your employees. Like, that's a real scumbag move. And then to not actually fire them, to be like, hey, in the next 6 months, that's the only thing that I think we can take away from it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Have yourselves a great day. Be kind to the people around you. And what a terrible thing.